What If season 2. Now, when it comes to What If, I did not do individual breakdowns for this, mainly because every episode was coming out every single day, and it just would have been too hard. And I was on vacation, so I wasn't about to jump on live every time to talk about 15 minutes of a show, or 20 or whatever it was. But we did get an episode per day, which I thought was actually kind of cool, especially when you have, this is why I say I enjoy and appreciate when Marvel tries to do different things. If this was Netflix, they would have dropped, every episode out on one time, and people would have caught it whenever they could have, and the word of mouth would have came and left or whatever. If this was the old Marvel, they would have dropped this one episode every week. And I'm sorry, not for these 20 minutes. If you're going to drop something once a week, you got to give us at least 45 minutes to an hour, something that can marinate for some time being before you move on, to the next episode. So the fact that they tried something different by giving us one episode per day, I thought that was actually kind of decent. Like, I was like, yo, you know what? This is cool. It gives people time to catch up. It's not a huge commitment. And like, if you want to cover it, you can. If you don't, no big deal, right? So either way, because of the whole vacation schedule, I decided to just talk about everything all at once right here, right now. Like I said before, this is not going to be a full entire breakdown, but I will kind of just go through every episode, just lightly touch on them here and there. So in the first episode, which one do we have? This was the one where we had Nebula. So this was the one with Nebula, and we had some real, I would say, Blade Runner type of vibes to it, almost like a LA Confidential type of thing, where you're solving this crime with her. And I actually thought it was decent. This was a different style for Marvel, especially focusing on Nebula, which I thought was also kind of cool too. We got some side characters with Korg and Howard the Duck and all of that. And, and of course, you see Nebula here. As she's going through everything, she ends up turning into basically the other version of Yondu. And this is, I guess, they fake little Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever. But overall, I did think that the episode was decent. I did like the whole, background information with Nebula's character. I thought it was okay with the whole twist that they put at the end. Especially how she was dealing with Jan Rog. I thought that was decent. Now, I wouldn't say it was my favorite episode, but it was okay. Like, for a little appetizer, something to start off, it was okay, So I was like, all right, fine, cool, whatever. Then we move on to episode 2, and this is where we deal with a young Peter Quill, or AKA Star-Lord. And this is where he really was just kind of like, what if he were left in the care of Ego? So what if Yondu actually delivered him, and Ego was able to kind of separate him from his humanity, his mortal side a little bit, and just kind of groom him a little bit more, and we see him fully utilizing his powers and abilities. And at the same time, this takes place in 1988, where we see basically Shield under Howard Stark's operation. And we still see other Avengers, right? A different team. And this is, we get King T'Chaka, here, and he's part of the team. We got Bill Foster, aka Goliath. We also get Hank Pym as the original Ant-Man, here. You see Peggy, and we even have the Winter Soldier, Bucky, as well, because this whole Peter Quill thing is like a real global issue. And it was kind of cool that, they still showed Peggy and Bucky kind of having that little moment or whatever. I thought that was pretty cool. We also had Wendy Lawson. I guess she'd been working with the Kree because she got her Kree gear on here. But she's been working with the Tesseract, of course. This is before Captain Marvel actually gets her powers and stuff like that. But I thought that this was interesting, especially when Thor came into the mix. I like the fact that we had a slightly different version of Thor here. He seemed a lot more serious. He wasn't as joking or whatever. But if you think about it, he came here because he wanted all the smoke with Peter Quill, because this Peter Quill was going around, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he destroyed Asgard. So this Peter Quill went to Asgard and destroyed it. So Thor was like, I ain't playing with y'all. I'm here to kill this little boy. I'm here to kill him, and that's it. We stomping him out. And of course, we see Ego seeds are here. He's been planting them all around the universe, trying to basically replicate himself and take over. And even though they captured Peter, we do see a young wasp, Janet here. She ends up freeing him. And it just kind of boils down to this whole story of how he's just a misunderstood kid, blah 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 blah. Ego's like, yo, where's my offspring at? Y'all not just gonna take my kid like that and leave him, whatever. So he comes back to get him. But of course, this is where things start to get a little bit more predictable, because rather than going down a completely alternate route, we go down a familiar route again, where he ends up telling Star-Lord about his mom and what he did. And of course, that was not okay, even though they just got done recruiting him to be on their side. And even though I did like this whole little battle here, I thought that was kind of cool, because it's like, what are you going to do against a celestial? Like, eventually you're not going to make it. But of course, they use a celestial against a celestial to defeat him. Now, by the way, I probably should have said this, and I don't know if y'all didn't notice, but this is going to be somewhat spoilery, so sorry. But yeah, we're going to go through all of that. But overall, for this episode, it was cool. It was all right. It was nice to see I'm sorry, what did I say? I said Janet. That was Hope. I'm getting the wrong Van Dyne. That was Hope. We saw a young Hope. Janet was actually killed here, and Hank was mad about that. And that's why he almost didn't even want to work with them. So that was cool that they kept that energy alive too. But yeah, I thought overall this was okay. Um, you know, I was a little put off though with the fact that it was so predictable, because I was just like, okay, clearly you about to use him against his daddy again, but well, okay, whatever. But we're only 2 episodes in. And one of my issues with this season has not baked in yet, but we're getting close. So then we jump to episode 3. This is Happy Hogan saving Christmas or whatever. Let's see. Then we get Justin Hammer's back in action. They're sitting here looking for the Hulk blood, because everybody wants Hulk blood. But of course, the Hulk blood gets mishandled. It gets into Happy Hogan. He gets it. He turns into a freak monster or whatever. He fights off everybody, saves Justin Hammer, and that's it. This had to have been the weakest episode to me. This would have been something that I would have skipped. Like, I didn't care. It wasn't terrible. I'm just saying, like, out of this whole season, I was just kind of like, y'all could have saved this one. Like, this feels like one of those episodes that Marvel wanted to do for themselves, because there were a lot of inside jokes for themselves. Again, I don't think it was a terrible episode. I'm just saying, compared to everything else that they had, it was on the weaker side for me. So moving on, what else do we have? Yeah, we did the Happy Hogan. Episode 4. So episode 4, this is where we got Tony Stark's journey. Now, I like this. I like the fact that this was kind of like, what happens if Tony Stark didn't make it back and he was kind of lost in space. And, while he's lost in space, he ends up meeting the Grandmaster, again. And then he's got him doing this, I don't know, Mad Max, almost Star Wars chariot race car thing going on or whatever. Now here's the crazy thing though. Like, I thought that this was going to be a story about Gamora, because that's kind of what they said. That, in the first season, we saw Tony and Gamora teaming up, and they said that, yeah, we're gonna find out why and how they teamed up, and she took over, she killed Thanos and all this stuff. And I was like, yo, that's interesting. I do want to see more of Gamora's story of like, what if she changed earlier. But this ended up being more of a story about Tony, and not so much about Gamora. But what I did like about it was the fact that, we see a little bit more about how Tony's journey to become a hero is manifested a little bit more. And I did think that that was actually pretty fun. I thought it was real dope how he came up, like, they kept the integrity of Tony's character together in terms of him just being a genius. And when you expose him to more technological things, he's going to figure it out and he's going to adapt. And when he had his suit go and turn into the car, I was like, yo, that was pretty slick. That was really, really dope. And then, of course, after they win the race or whatever, have their laughs, now it's time for Gamora to meet Thanos. And this is Thanos, without, he doesn't have his space ring. He gave that to Ronan or whatever. He doesn't have his Mind Stone. He gave that to Loki or whatever. So this is Thanos just sitting there, and Gamora takes him out. And I was just like, that's how he goes out. Just like that. Like, he just sat there and was like, oh, so I'm dead, huh? Okay. All right. I'm dead. Now, this is where the show started to get a little suspect for me as a series, because I'm sitting here like, okay, we've seen this before. We've seen Thanos get wiped off the planet and turned into a zombie. We've seen this before. And now, and to be fair, season 1, y'all already did say that this Gamora killed this Thanos. Okay. Let's see what else you got. So then we move on to episode 5. And I like this one. This wasn't bad. This was the Watcher, and he was repairing everything from the last season when Ultra Vision came through, or Ultron Vision, and broke, a lot of the walls and stuff. So the Watcher is repairing everything here. And we pick up with Peggy Carter, or Captain Carter. And now she's back in the world where she left off, in terms of being thrust forward in time, basically copying Captain America's story. Speaking of which, we do find out that the Hydra Stomper, or whatever it was called, is now around, and they it's on a mission to take out, Bucky, because Bucky done climbed up the political ladder now. But we also find out that it was Steve that was under there the whole time. And this, of course, causes a lot for Peggy to deal with, because she's a woman out of time, and now he's also a man out of time. And I have no idea how the heck this suit kept him preserved for this long, but whatever. Comics, fiction, all right. But they end up going on a mission to go and stop the Red Room, aka where the Black Widow came from. And they get met with all these drones that are like shooting these little stingers at them. And we get keep in mind, this is the Black Widow from another universe too, by the way, that they pulled out. But looks like it was all a trap, and Steve was actually playing them from the jump. And even though he was playing them, all it took was just a couple nice words, and it broke him free from the whole mind control thing. And he ended up turning on their side. Meanwhile, Natasha's going against Melina, her adoptive mother. Pretty decent action scenes here, though, by the way. I did like the action scenes. And of course, Steve was like, nah, kamikaze mission. That's what we on today. Goes all the way up, destroys everybody. And right before we can get done, Peggy gets sucked up into some mystical portal, some other hole or whatever. And even the Watcher was like, what the hell? Like, what was that? So again, this was interesting. I mean, this came from Wanda. So Wanda from another reality ended up opening up this hole to transport Peggy Carter. And now I'm sitting here like, wait a minute. Wanda got multiversal powers now? Like she can open Wanda can try. Now here's the thing. Did this Wanda have did she have the dark hold? Because that's the only way she learned how to do some of that stuff that she was doing. Did she did she kidnap America Chavez? Is America Chavez dead and consumed? Like, how did she learn how to do this? Because her powers ain't got nothing to do with multiversal time hopping or whatever. They just don't. But I guess whatever. That's a question we just have to figure out later. Let's see. Jumping to episode 6. We see here this is where Odin was fighting against Surtur, and in that whole encounter, Asgard gets destroyed. And before anything can happen, or I'm sorry, after everything happens, the space stone ends up finding its way onto Earth and goes out here. And this is where we actually get one of the original characters created here is Kahori, and I really liked her character. This had to have been one of the best things that Marvel has done so far with their Disney Plus series. I mean, yes, Loki was great, but the fact that you actually took the time to create a new character, honestly, that's what this What If series could have always been about. We could have had a plethora of not remixed characters, because they gave us a lot of remixed characters of like, what if they went this route? No, you could just give us a different situation that creates a whole new character. And that to me is super, super dope. So I love the fact that we got her in here. And of course, we got some of the original colonizers as well. But we see here that she gets transported because of the time stone or the space stone to another location. And within that location, she meets other folks from her past tribes. I believe this was the Mohawk tribe, if I'm not mistaken. But when I tell you, I love what this series did in terms of really trying to keep the authenticity of these native cultures and beliefs. I believe Marvel consulted with a whole lot of experts in the field or whatnot. And it feels like, I can't testify to whether it was true or not, but it feels like it was authentic. It felt like, that they really captured all the things that the cultures and their beliefs really believed in. And what I also liked was the fact that they tied this in with with history, to a certain extent, because you have the Spanish conquistadors who wanted to look for the fountain of youth. And of course, you have this water that gives people all these abilities and stuff. And honestly, I actually liked what they did with the powers as well. Like the powers and everything from the people, I thought was really dope. I like the way they used them here. I thought all of this stuff was just really, really good storytelling. I like the fact that, like, when they actually do confront the queen and stuff like that, I like the fact that they took the time to learn Spanish so that they could speak to them. So, like, again, if anybody's wondering how come they wasn't speaking language, first of all, I love the fact that they wasn't speaking English. Why would native people speak English for us? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, eventually they can learn that. But I love the fact that it was all captions. We had to deal with their language because they don't speak English. And then they spoke a little Spanish to the Spanish queen. And then eventually, of course, they speak English. But I just really like what they did here. Now, it was a little interesting. I'll say that. It was interesting that Kahori just, boy, when she took up, like, she was just like, oh, are these magic powers? Pew! Listen, it ain't take no time for her to learn. No time. Now, she did train. Okay, she did train, so I'll give her that. But boy, she came up and she was like, I'm finna Captain Marvel this. I'm finna Ray Skywalker this. and she ended up like, oh, this what y'all do for fun? Yeah, I just grabbed like 50 million crystals. That was the game, right? So anyway, even then, I still enjoyed this was probably one of my favorite episodes out of the whole series. And then even after all of that, we see boom, Doctor Strange show up. And now, in case you didn't notice, he too has multiversal powers as well. Because now he can travel across the multiverse, which it's like, yo, you traveling across the multiverse and Wanda doing that too? What is going on? Like at this point, I'm like, yo, what? There's got to be some other multiversal threat because now, he was like, oh, you're the person I was looking for when he was talking about Kahori. And I was just like, oh, snap. Look like we about to do another. It's round two for the multiversal Avengers. But what is this big thing? What is the big issue that Doctor Strange got to get involved now? So overall, and by the way, I love the fact that Kahori gave the queen a whole chance, and the queen was like, nah, we ain't going. And Corey was like, all right, whatever. Down goes your throne. So I'm down with it because listen, old girl was like, look, I'm coming to give you peace. Matter of fact, I gave you a peace offering. You don't want it, but you really don't want it. Okay. You don't want the peace, but you don't want this. Okay. But I loved how they did that. Again, I thought this was one of the best stories that they had for this series so far. Moving on, we have episode 7. Now, episode 7, I have mixed feelings about episode 7. Now, episode 7 is the one with Hela. And this episode, I thought, started off great, but it had some issues in the writing that I did not particularly care for. Now, I know some people might like this, and I'm not trying to ruin this episode for people. And maybe I'm wrong about some things. I'll totally accept that. So if I'm wrong about it, like it's fine. Y'all can let me know if you have a different opinion. But there were some things in this episode I was not feeling. But let's kind of go through it real quick. So Hela, of course, we know is the goddess of death, goddess of destruction, and all of that. And of course, we know the whole story where basically she was just a little too OP with her obsession with death. And she has this whole confrontation with her dad, Odin, and he banishes her, right? He kicks her out of Asgard. And it's basically the Thor story all over again. Because Odin was like, yo, you need to value life. You need to respect life and show mercy. And he puts a curse on her helmet, very similar to how he did with Mjolnir with Thor. So, in other words, Thor had to learn how to be worthy and all of that. So he was like, yo, you got to learn how to be merciful. You got to learn how to have some compassion for life and not have this bloodthirstiness or whatever. And, that's it, right? That's why he banished her. So, by the way, that is very important. Okay. I want you to realize the reason why he sent her is very important to my criticism later on. Now, of course, we get the helmet is now stuck, just like Thor's hammer was stuck. But now we move into Wenwu. Wenwu, of course, at this time he had the 10 rings, and the 10 rings, he was basically, according to him anyway, was using to protect the realm from other invaders, other let's say things from outside of Earth or whatever. He was trying to conquer everything to protect it at the same time. So kind of a mixed shady character. I did think it was pretty funny how Hela was like, oh no, please, I'm just a helpless woman, and then starts to kick everybody's butt. Thought that was pretty cool. But they do end up when we was like, oh, okay, like if you I understand what it means to have these ancient relics. And if you are worthy of that, go pick it up. And she tried, she failed, couldn't do it. Then we saw a little something, looked like she was trying to kick it off with Wenwu. Maybe they was trying to bust a ring or two. Who knows, But of course, she wasn't playing with him. She wanted to get out. So she escapes into the forest of Tao Lo. And that's where she meets Shang-Chi's mama. and she decides to take Hela under her guidance for some time and to train her because for whatever reason she just saw something in her. Meanwhile, Heimdall with his nosy self, of course, he couldn't see Hela anymore. That bothered him. He told Odin. Odin was like, "Oh hell no! What you mean you can't see her? Is she dead?" And Heimdall was like, "Look, I don't know if she dead, but I do know that Earth Midgard, they do have some weapon down there, and them rings, they dangerous. Them things will probably kill a god or something." And Odin was like, "Oh hell no! This gonna disturb the peace? Nah, man, we can't have that. I don't like that at all." So now Odin, even though he wants peace by any means necessary. And that includes starting up a war or inciting violence, which already is a bit of a contradiction if you really think about it. So Odin decides to go to Midgard to figure out what's going on with these 10 rings and who's behind it, what's the deal and all of that. Meanwhile, Hela is training and she is getting good. Okay, she out here, pushing the flowers and stuff, doing the matrix and all that. When she doing her thing, the kung fu flowers. She getting all of that. But word is that Odin is out and he's on Earth, and they gotta, she gotta face him. That's part of her, that's her issue, because what I like about this was the fact that they were really talking about Hela's character when Shang-Chi's mama said, like, well, what do you want? Like, what do? You conquer everything, then what? And I like that because I like the fact that this is what you do to dig at somebody's character. This is what they did in Loki for a long time. It was like, well, you want to conquer Earth for what? And Loki was like, man, I was just scared. Like, I just didn't want to be alone. I want to be in control. And Hela basically was like, I just wanted freedom. I just wanted to be free to make my own decisions, because if I conquer everything, that's just a means to an end for her. And I thought that was brilliant. I love that because I was like, yo, it's really dope when we get like the motivations, the real tinkering behind a villain and their intentions, and realize like, all you wanted was just this. And if you had that, then this little ambition of trying to take over the world wouldn't even be a thing. Like maybe if you didn't have daddy issues, maybe if you didn't have certain insecurities or whatever, you'd be a better person. And I like how it's always coming down to how choices and situations can drastically affect someone's character. And that's what we're seeing here with Hela. But of course, Odin comes down. We see the tag team matchup with Wenwu and with Hela. They going against Odin. And this is kind of sort of where I started to have an issue. Now, I liked the idea that you had the goddess of death and you had this guy Wenwu who had these weapons. And keep in mind, these 10 rings, we still don't know where they came from. Okay, we still don't know their origin. And according to Hela, these things did not come from the 9 realms, or at least it didn't come from this realm, from Midgard. So she's like, yo, this is a foreign object to us. And Heimdall's like, yo, whatever this is, it could kill a god. So I had no issue with the fact that they were fighting. Matter of fact, one thing that I did like was the fact that Odin was keeping up. He might have been old, he might not have been in his prime, but the All Father is still no joke. Like, just because he's old does not mean he's some pushover. Odin was so powerful that he kept other folks in check. That's one of the reasons why people did not even think about trying to take over Midgard, Asgard, until this man took a power nap. That's the only time. That's because that's how powerful Odin was. So I wasn't mad that you had him kind of not really struggling, but he was still fighting against both of them. But this is where I started to have an issue, and it was right here. It was right here. Once again, this is what he said right here. And I'm quoting him, since when does my daughter pass a chance to end life? Because this was the moment where she beat Odin and she could have killed him, but she didn't. She showed mercy. And right when she showed mercy, what happened? Boom, the helmet comes back. We see her now. She's all in white. She's good. She's clean. You know, all of that good stuff, right? But what does Odin do? Odin's still like, where's my daughter? Where's my daughter that was the killing machine? Like, what? Where is she at? And he still wouldn't give up. What? What was the purpose of this? What was the purpose of this? What was the purpose of this man putting a curse on her helmet to literally wait for her to learn compassion and mercy? And then when she actually does learn the lesson, you still don't want that? You still not okay with it? That was bad writing to me. That was bad writing for Odin just because you wanted to push Hela's character. Now, at the end of the day, if you're trying to be consistent, Odin should not be sitting here like, oh, where's my daughter of God? Oh, how come you learn mercy now? You should have been like, oh, my daughter, you got it. You're finally worthy of your helmet. You learned the lesson that I've been saying. And when he, kneeled to her and was like, okay, you won. You can have the throne of Asgard. No. It shouldn't have been given to her through an act of submission because she beat you up. Odin should have been like, oh man, you finally learned the lesson that I was hoping you would. And because of that, not only are you worthy of your powers, but now you should be worthy of the throne. So this whole idea of trying to keep Odin just negative, that to me was bad writing. That was not okay. It made no sense because I'm like, what was the point of the whole curse in the first point? Like what are you doing? Y'all just see, this is where the writing was like, no, we need him to just stay being a bad guy so we could keep elevating the good, Hela at this point. So I didn't care for that. That did not add up to me. And then we did the one thing that I was really hoping we would not keep doing, but they did it anyway. And of course, now that Hela is now the new, reigning goddess or queen of Asgard, which is fine. Let's go kill Thanos. Because when in doubt, let's go kill Thanos. Because we ain't got nothing else to do. Just night Thanos. Again? Really? It's like they can just keep going to the same bag of tricks. And I'm sorry, it's not really all that great of a trick. Anyway, moving on to episode 8. We go to 1602. And by the way, I didn't know this, but this is actually based off of a whole comic series. So that's actually pretty cool that they're doing that. But we have this world that is dealing with incursions. And in these incursions, you basically have two realities that have been melded together. But what I like about this so far, what I like about it is the fact that everyone is aware of what's happening. Everyone is aware that, yes, there are rips in the realms and the worlds have merged together. But I really do believe that what they're doing in episode 8, I think that this is an indication of what could happen in Secret Wars or in Avengers Kang Dynasty. I have the feeling that we just got a taste of basically what it's going to look like when we have multiple realities, maybe a reality with X-Men, when it merges with an already existing reality that's on the verge of an incursion. So I do like that this was happening. And I like the fact that the characters were aware. They were just like, we saw Scarlet Witch and Nick Fury later on. They just really knew, they understood, like, yo, we have to save this world, So I thought that was pretty cool. But this is where it got dumb to me. Hela, she's queen here. Again, that's fine. This is the part that made no sense. What the hell was up with Thor? Thor out of nowhere, because Scarlet Witch brought Peggy Carter to this reality, to save their realm. First of all, I don't know why they thought Peggy Carter. Why would you think out of anybody, a super soldier from another reality was going to save y'all from a planetary reality incursion? Shouldn't y'all have been grabbing more Scarlet Witches? Shouldn't y'all been grabbing y'all a couple Doctor Strangers? Like, y'all should have been grabbing some other folks. What? Look, should y'all have grabbed the Watcher? Y'all should have grabbed somebody else instead of Peggy Carter. But then on top of that, when Hela does end up getting sucked into the realm or whatever, so I don't know, wherever she goes, she's gone. Thor now is mad at Peggy? What? Bad writing. Bad writing. I know Thor is stupid. I know he's not the brightest. But you gonna blame Peggy after, by the way, she literally just saved your brother from being sucked in. But you gonna blame her for the incursions that sucked up your sister? That, again, Peggy ain't got no powers. How the hell did y'all think she was gonna save y'all in the first place? Dumb. This was just dumb to me, just to make Thor the villain or the antagonist in this. Again, I get why they did it for the sake of the story. I just thought it was just weird that all of a sudden this was the reason why he was all against her. But whatever. Anyway, we got to tell the story. Anyway, now apparently Captain Carter can hear and see the Watcher. Whoo, listen, hold on, man. Listen, we starting to get real free with they're taking a lot of liberties here. Okay, now I'm just saying, usually in order for a being to be aware or have the ability to even see or hear or notice the Watcher, and I'm using the MCU's rules, I'm not going into the comics, you usually have to attain a certain level of ability and power on a cosmic level to become attuned to his presence. I don't care if the Watcher used to talk to her in the other multiversal episodes or whatever. That don't mean that she can be able to see and talk to him just like that. But if that's what they're doing, I guess I just thought it made more sense that when you get to that level, it should come from having more abilities, because again, that's what they established. Doctor Strange didn't start hearing the Watcher until he gained a whole lot of power. Ultron and Vision didn't start hearing the Watcher until he gained a whole lot of cosmic power. That's what made them attuned to cosmic anything. I just think it's mighty convenient that now all of a sudden she can hear him. That's all. So whatever. I thought this was funny though, when they're having this whole conversation and she's like, yo, we gotta save this world. Yo, we gotta do all this stuff. We gotta help. And the Watcher tuned. I don't know if y'all caught this, but the Watcher tapped into his inner Cameron from Paid in Full and was like, yo, worlds be dying every day, B. Okay? Like, worlds die every day. I don't know why I found that so funny. Because he was just like, I mean, I be seeing worlds die all the time. Universes die all the time. Like, what's the big deal? And if you think about it, he's not wrong. You can't save every single reality. You can't save every world. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of these worlds are going to die. The majority, thankfully, thanks because of Loki, most of them are going to live, but you can't save all of them, Anyway, I just thought that was a funny little moment there. But we start to see more characters. We see Tony Stark here. Of course, he's still, tinkering away in his lab and all that. And then, of course, we see what is this? Robin Rogers or whatever, Rogers Hood or whatever. And by the way, so she needs him to steal the gem that's in Thor's scepter, which I believe is the time stone in this case. And by the way, they sent me clean off with this. Now, granted, I heard the Hulk, And I was like, oh, okay, they got the Hulk locked up. But when I saw this, I really thought that this was Doctor Doom. I'm not gonna lie, because this is the old mask that Doctor Doom used to wear back in the old school comics. Okay, so I really thought that What If was about to be bold and give us Doctor Doom early. But nah, it was the Hulk for real. So I was like, all right, fine, whatever. It was fine to have the Hulk here. It was cool, whatever. And then of course, Wanda is revealed to be working with Nick Fury. Turns out that they have to find out who the Forerunner is, basically the first person out of time. And if they can send that person back in time, then that would have been the way to save their world, I guess. And then, of course, we find out that it was actually Steve Rogers, because it's always Steve Rogers' fault. The same way Infinity War was all his fault, this also was all his fault, because he was facing Thanos here. And oh my gosh, Thanos actually doesn't die here, but they do end up showing that it is Steve. And we do have a touching moment between Steve and Peggy, where they talk about, like, man, like, are we ever gonna have some time? Are we ever gonna be able to just have that moment where we could just, be together? And he said here, someday we will. Now, here's the thing, and I don't know if this is consistent or not. I wonder if this man out of time, because if you think about it, he said that he hit Thanos's gauntlet and scraped against the time stone. We would never notice if he was gone and back at that same time. Okay, so if he left at 1 second and he returned at that same 1 second, we would never notice that. So what I'm saying, I wonder if this Steve Rogers that went to this other time and all this stuff, I wonder if this moment, this interaction with Peggy, is what influenced him to make his decision in Endgame to therefore go back in time and spend it with Peggy in the alternate timeline. Just thought, I don't know, but I think that would be kind of cool if that was the connection. Does that make sense? So again, in that brief moment in Infinity War, hit the time stone, zip out, go live another life, zip right back in, almost seamless. So he probably don't even notice. And then he's like, dang, you know what? I sure could go. I sure do want me some Peggy from an alternate timeline. Maybe. I don't know. Y'all let me know what you think. Maybe. Actually, that's, you know what? I need to ask if I ever get an interview with one of them. I'm gonna ask them if that's the case. That'd be a good one. Don't nobody steal that. I know somebody be watching, they be stealing my questions. Anyway, so after they fix everything, we get a visit from, once again, Doctor Strange to visit Captain Carter, and it seems like, listen, something got to be popping off. If Strange is popping off, we saw him visit Kahori and we see him visiting Captain Carter. Clearly, there's a multiversal level threat. It's looking like we got to do the multiversal Avengers again, and we will see how that goes. Now we go. So I will say, for this episode, it was okay. Wasn't my favorite. Wasn't the worst. It was fine. I didn't like the Thor thing, with the writing, but it was fine either way. Now we fast forward to episode 9. So now with episode 9, we have Doctor Strange, and we're in his like new sanctum or whatever. And while he was recruiting Peggy, he brings her into this new place where basically he's been collecting all these villains, and he was like, yo, I need you to go help me with this one villain, but I can't really do nothing with it because she gonna see me coming, but she ain't gonna see you coming. Now here's the thing, I thought when he said that, I thought he was talking about an evil version of Peggy, because I was like, oh, that would make sense to send an evil to send the good Peggy against the evil Peggy because Peggy would know how to figure it out. I thought that's what they were going with, but that's not what they were going with. Instead, threw a curveball, and it was really Kahori. That's who she was actually after. And by the way, I like that whole little Age of Ultron, with Quicksilver thing. Oh, you didn't see that coming? I like that little call back there. That was pretty cool. But Kahori was like, yo, I'm not the villain here. It's this dude right here. He the real problem. And boom, that's when we see Evil Strange has come right back out again. And apparently he wants to capture Kahori because basically he wants to put all the villains and the heroes into some big old forge to recreate his world. Now, this is where the episode starts to fall apart for me because I'm not a fan of the fact of undoing the redemption for characters. I don't really care for that because one of my favorite episodes in season 1 was the Doctor Strange episode. I still say that Doctor Strange episode was better than the actual movie Doctor Strange 2. Way better character development, way better, consequences. Just everything I thought was done better. Even Kevin Feige told the people making the movie, he showed them what if episode 4 with Doctor Strange was like, this is y'all competition. Like, y'all need to do better than this. So when we saw Doctor Strange here revert back, it felt cheap to me because you're talking about a guy who literally was already pushed to the edge. He was already pushed to the edge to learn his lesson that, yo, Christine, and trying to do all this stuff ain't worth it. And the fact that he got pushed even further beyond that, to me, I didn't care for that writing direction because you literally lost all existence. And on top of that, you did bring back Christine in that other episode, and she ain't want your funky monster tail. She literally told you, I don't know you. I don't want you. So just where does the motivation come from for this Supreme Strange to go back and bring that love of his life and stop her, bring her back? You literally lost the entire world and existence. You saw what it felt like. You saw the errors of your actions, and now you was like, nah, let me do it again. Let me try another way. I mean, I understand being lonely is a problem. I get that. But for some booty, you did all that just for some booty? For some booty that didn't even want you. She don't even want you. Bro, you couldn't have gone through with all them magical portals you got. You couldn't go to another universe where maybe you never existed and maybe you just fell in love with her over there. I feel like we're going right back into the same issues that Doctor Strange 2 did with Wanda. Because remember, Wanda was doing some stupid stuff too with her dumb plan to go get her kids when she could have just magically recreated them, or out of the infinite possibilities, go into a world where maybe they mama not there and the kids are there and you adopt them or something. I'm just saying I did not like the writing for his motivation. Now, there is another possible explanation with Doctor Strange and his motivations, and I'm gonna tell you why I didn't like that either. I'm gonna get to that. But while we're going through this, we see that Peggy has the bright idea of unleashing all this chaos to distract Doctor Strange Supreme. We see in all these different variants. We see Wenwu here, and we see another Hela here, which was kind of cool. We see a return of the Marvel zombies and Marvel Wanda zombie. Who was never mind, I ain't even gonna go there. We also see this. I think this was a version of Thor if he had the Hulk powers. I think that's who he was, Thulk or whatever it was. I don't know. I was gonna say horror, but no. We also see Surtur. I love how Surtur and Hela was like, "Oh, you? Oh, you?" Because remember back in Thor Ragnarok, like they went at it, together. By the way, this was also something I had an issue with in the last episode where Hela was fighting Odin. Again, I'm going off of MCU logic here, okay? I don't think it made a lot of sense for Hela. Yes, she had Wenwu's help, but I don't think that she was supposed to have all this ability to defeat Odin. Again, because Odin is no slouch. But according to the whole logic, Hela is more powerful when she's in Asgard. I don't know, home territory, whatever you want to call it. So all I'm saying is you had Hela without her powers and her stuff. Yeah, she learned some Tao Lo stuff, but then you also had her away from Asgard, and she's still able to beat Odin. I'm just saying, like, if y'all had brought her to Asgard, maybe that would have been a little bit more believable. But anyway, again, nitpicking at that point. But I just thought that was something that could have been utilized since it was established for her character that she gets way more powerful when she's in Asgard. Anyway, what else do we have here? Oh, of course, Thanos. Guess who's back? And of course, they're not going to do what they did last time. Of course, they will, because they have to bring back Killmonger, and Thanos is dead once again. I'm at the point now where I think it might be time for me to make another video where Marvel is really starting to fail Thanos. And it's a very similar feeling that I had with Marvel and the Hulk and how they failed the Hulk. But I really feel like they are failing Thanos with this running joke. I'm assuming this is a joke that he just keeps dying in all these what if things. So I'm going to get my thoughts together on that. But it's starting to become more of an annoyance than it is a, oh, look, ha, ha, ha type of thing for me. It was cool to bring back Killmonger, I guess, brought him back in his little armor or whatever. Now, this is probably where I have another slight issue. And I feel like this might also be a bit of an inconsistency within the MCU. Again, some of this stuff is my opinion, but I'm also basing it off of the logic that has been pre-established in the MCU. You guys are not on Earth. You're not in whatever reality that you're in. The Infinity Stones are made up of the essence of a reality. So if you have the Infinity Stones from the 616, they technically should only work in the 616. In other words, if you take the Infinity Stones from the 616 and go to the 838, they're not going to work. Now, in the last season, the What If writer, AC Bradley, she tried to find a workaround. Now, I think I was one of them. We tried to call her out on it because we was like, how are y'all using this? And it's outside the universe. It don't make sense. Now, she did say that you can use the Infinity Stones on yourself. Because I was sitting there, I was like, how is Ultron, how is he able to use these things? But according to her, she was saying that you can use them on yourself. Now, personally, I still don't think that logic holds up. But let's just say that is the case. Let's just say you can use it. If I'm from the 616 and I use the stones on myself, fair game. Fine. It's fiction. But what the hell are they doing working on other people? How are these abilities working on other people? Now, I'm not talking about Kahori, because Kahori, her powers do come from her space stone, but those powers are embedded in her. So that's not an issue for me. I'm talking about Killmonger snapping away Thanos. You literally have two different Infinity Stones from two different realities, but one can have power over. No, that to me is why that's not adding up. It's not adding up. And then now we get into what seems to feel like the rabbit hole of getting a little overpowered. Because now Peggy got to have the stones. Okay, I get it. You need something to combat against Supreme Strange. I'm fine with that. And you see Strange is going all out. He's doing his thing. But then all of a sudden, Peggy starts to use the stones on herself. On herself. Again, I don't think that the logic should work, but fine, whatever. And then all of a sudden, the overpowering comes in. Everybody starts throwing her weapons. You got the 10 rings, you got Mjolnir. Everybody's throwing her all their weapons. And now everybody got all the powers. Everybody got all the powers. And Hela's helmet. This was starting to get a little overboard for me. Because one thing that I always like in my heroes is for them to, don't get me wrong, I'm a Dragon Ball fan. I understand what overpowered looks like. Okay. I understand it. But I always like it when you have a place of struggle to come from. And I don't feel like that was really had here. In other words, it didn't really feel like this was earned as much, because it was kind of like, here's some magical gimmicks. Take all the magical gimmicks. To be fair, you are fighting a magical wizard. That's crazy, I guess. But this kind of made me feel like what we got in Secret Invasion. That was it. That was it. It was almost like, hey, remember in Secret Invasion where we had to give that one scroll all the powers? I guess. So I'm rolling with it. I'm like, okay, I'm rolling with it. And I do like the fact that they turned it up a little bit with Strange. So we saw this in the last season as well. Strange, of course, consuming all that dark energy, all that dark, the monsters and all that stuff. We saw that all that stuff was built up in him, and he started turning into the monster, the Legion. Now, here's the other excuse, because I told y'all I did not like the excuse of this man going through this whole journey. And let's not make light of the journey that Supreme Strange went through. This dude literally went through the most. He went through every outcome of trying to bend time, trying to fix his world, trying to bend reality, trying to use magic, trying to bring his girl back. And none of it worked. None of it worked. And this dude said, let me go back and try and recreate the world. For what? I could see if maybe there was another possibility. I could see that. But recreating his same world made no sense. But anyway, some might say maybe it's because he got possessed. I am Legion, right? Like maybe that was the monster that was doing this. Now, here's the thing. We've dealt with possession before, or at least I believe we have. And I said that this had very similar vibes as Doctor Strange 2 with Wanda. And I made a video about it. I told y'all Wanda's plan never made sense, and it was always stupid, because I believe it was never her plan. It was always Chthon, or the bigger evil entity's plan. Because remember, she at least had the influence of the Darkhold working on her. So when you have these outside influences, those things can impact your decision making. I'm fine, I'm not always a fan of it, but I'm understanding of it. I don't think that was at play here because even though, yes, he had all these different monsters and stuff going on, the reason why possessions don't always work for me is because usually the possession should lead to a bigger plan that's in the works. I didn't get that here. So yeah, Strange he might want Christine back, but whatever this legion of demons or monsters are, they should have wanted something more or bigger. And if there was a plan, that was not expressed. I didn't see any of that happening. These legion of monsters, whatever, they didn't say, no, he's ours, and we're going to recreate a world in our image instead. Forget Christine. Like, it'd be different if they were using him for a greater evil plan. Now it makes more sense why he would do something so dumb as recreating his world. But that's not what it was. They were just like, nah, we just in here. Nah, we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. To me, not good writing. Didn't like it. Just one of those things of like, well, we're here now. We need to make Doctor Strange more evil. So let's just keep going. Bad timing. Didn't like it. So even though he does finally submit or whatever, he falls into the forge. And I like here. Now, here's the thing. You might think to yourself that he was being redeemed here. Because I told y'all one of my issues was the whole redeeming thing, right? But the issue here is like, and this might be something people might forget. Keep in mind that that might not be the actual evil Strange. It could have been, trying to fight against it. Maybe he learned his lesson again at that last minute. But I do kind of think that maybe that was actually the good Strange that was in him. Because don't forget, in the last episode in season 1, the Ancient One split Doctor Strange up into two. His good side, where he never, was a simp for Christine, and his more evil side, right? And even though they fought each other, the evil one absorbed the good Strange. So I'm really thinking that at the end here, that was actually the good Strange that might have finally kicked in, maybe, and was like, hey man, this plan is stupid. We need to die. Let's go. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if they confirm. But anyway, everything all plays out nicely. The Watcher ends up saving her, taking her back to a reality where Christine does exist, but Doctor Strange was never born or whatever. So there's that. But what I did like about the end of this was that they also confirmed, and we got to see the tree. This is the multiversal tree that Loki is, as we know, holding together with his hands at the very end. And I thought that was a really, really cool way just to kind of show that, like, hey, anything is still possible. The multiverse is still growing, yada, yada, yada. And that to me was a nice way to kind of connect everything without being dependent on other shows or whatever. So I thought that was actually kind of cool. Now, so that was my whole thing. I liked the episode, but like I said, I did have a couple grievances with the direction and the writing of especially Doctor Strange's character. I didn't think it was very well fleshed out. Or at least it wasn't clear, not to me. But in terms of the overall season for season 2 of What If, I thought that this season was a step down from season 1. And one of the reasons why I felt it was a step down was because this was far too safe. This entire, season it took very little risk, and I'm not saying that everything has to be doom and gloom, but I'm like, yo, in the first couple episodes of the season 1, you had Avengers just dying. You had people just showing up getting murdered. You had the world being taken over by zombies. Like, we actually got to see alternate situations pan out in different realities. And the reason why I say that this is not a good thing is because when we get to see all the other worlds, all the other realities, really going down a bad path or whatever, it makes you appreciate the 616 universe all that much more. Right. So when you get to see and be like, man, at least we not in the zombie world. Oh man, at least we not in the world where all the Avengers die. Oh man, at least we not in the world where Ultron and Vision come together. Like all these other what if possibilities, in my opinion, should always kind of make us look back and be like, dang, look how special. Some might even say how lucky the main universe is. So to me, I didn't really care for how safe season 2 was, because the whole purpose of What If is to give us alternate realities. I'm not saying it's a bad series. I'm not saying that at all. I still think it was good. I'm just saying I prefer what season 1 did because, for one thing, all the episodes were not always connected. And we did get the original character, with Kahori. That's a definite plus. I don't think I probably would have chose Captain Carter as a lead for so many stories. That to me was kind of like y'all don't have nobody else. Like, I mean, I like Captain Carter, but I don't think I needed her for 3 episodes. Like, there are so many other characters. There's so many other possibilities. We're dealing with what if? It's what if, which means there should be so many different things that happen. You don't have to stick to the same formula. You don't have to stick to the same characters. You could just go all over the place with stuff, But anyway, so yeah, for me, it was a step down. If I had to rate, I don't know if I rated What If season 1. I don't know if I did. If I did, whatever. But if I had to give a rating for season 2, I would probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. Still enjoyable, still entertaining. But yeah, like some of the writing did not work for me. Some of the motivations of the characters felt a little forced just to push the protagonist along, like Thor, like Odin, like Doctor Strange. Those things did not work for me. Um, some things were a little predictable, but at the same time, you gave me an original character. You did some multiversal stuff here, which I do think is interesting to still see. So yeah, I'm gonna give it about a 7.5 out of 10. But y'all let me know on a scale from 0 to 10, where did you place season 2 in terms of your ranking? And did you like it? Maybe you liked it more than season 1. Maybe you didn't. Whatever you think, please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. This was just a segment of one of my live chats, and if you're interested in joining in on the next one, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications for more. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.